Profile report story. I'm sure you're sick of the author's notes, but I really want to thank the first person to comment on this book and dedicate this chapter to Elisapaha. Again, it ain't much, but it really made my day equals greater than thank you. Nami leaned a bit over the railings, watching the calm ocean. Now that the fog was slowly lifting up, she could tell that it was a rather pleasant day. The cool wind that was slowly blowing didn't let you feel the heat of the sun that was still pretty strong. The weather was now of an early autumn. She thought that it was too bad that she couldn't enjoy the atmosphere at its fullest because of her dumb captain. She knew it wasn't his fault, but she still couldn't help but feel that stingy feeling when she thought of that so-called pirate empress. How could she ever compete with Hancock? After all, she was being considered the most beautiful woman in the world for a damn reason. She let a deep sigh out when she saw Robin with the corner of her eye. She knew that her friend was waiting for her to start the conversation by saying what was bothering her, so she didn't hesitate. How am I supposed to compete with that woman, Robin? I don't even begin to compare with her in beauty nor in strength, Nami sighed looking at her feet. I don't think that there's any competition in Luffy's eyes. To tell you the truth, I strongly doubt that Luffy would hesitate for even a split second if it were to choose between you and Hancock. Sure, she helped him during the Paramount War, but that's all. There's no way Luffy would choose her over one of his nakama, the raven-haired girl concluded with conviction, making Nami feel a little bit better. Even so, she wasn't fully relieved. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, everyone was looking at Luffy, waiting for him to say whatever he had to say. Without any trace of embarrassment or hesitation, he spoke his mind. There's been something bothering me for quite the time now. It began about 2 months after I started my training with Rayleigh. I found myself thinking about Nami a lot, and this weird, yet pleasant feeling would appear every time I thought about her or pictured her smile, and now that we're all together again, I feel like I want to be with her more and more, but she keeps hitting me and giving me the feeling that I annoy her, and it's really a pain in the ass that I don't know what's going on with me, he said without taking a single breath, while looking at his crew with big, innocent eyes. Zoro instantly face-palmed while the rest of the guys looked at him, somehow shocked, not expecting Luffy, of all men, fall for Nami. In fact, they never expected him to fall in love at all. How are we even supposed to explain this to him? The others shook their heads, not knowing how they were supposed to approach this subject with a person like Luffy. You guys know what's going on, right? So just tell me already. Well, Luffy, it means that you love her. Sanji made courage and tried to explain. But I love you too, guys, and I've never felt this way for any of you, Luffy innocently said. Luffy-san, that'd be terrifying, Brooks said with a serious voice. Yes, that surely would, Usopp agreed with a scared look on his face. I don't even want to think about it. Me neither. It would be worse than the hell I've been training into. Their voices grew more serious and terrified with every second. Promoted stories. You'll also like, look out for the Straw Hats. 5.3K185. YN joins the Straw Hats after meeting them in Logatown, making her the crew's lookout. She can dream up anything she wishes, with some limits, and even has a pair of My One Piece Book 1 12.2K278. Monkey D. Luffy, a cheerful, carefree young man from East Blue wearing a straw hat, set sail on a small boat carrying the biggest dream of finding the One Piece. He's our Phoenix One Piece X reader. 56.4K 2.6K. Reader is Fem spoilers early on recommended to know Law's backstory, Ace's backstory, and Germa 66 before reading your race, bird person similar to Fishman except WI. Luffy's jealousy. 73.1K 1.5K. Pairings. Luffy x Nami. What if the infamous Mugiwara crew docked on an unknown island? What if Nami had forgot? Gomen, Captain, 52.3K 1.5K. Book 1. No regrets, right? It's been 2 years since the Battle of Marineford. 2 years since the Straw Hats were separated. After taking off from Amazon Lily with Luffy's death. 9.7K 163. This is life for every person who has a specific time to live, but sometimes life is unfair in estimating lifespans. Evil people take longer lives than good people, but. Scales of a Rubbery Girl. 1.9K 39. This is a story about a 17-year-old girl named Monkey D. Luffy that goes on a journey to find the late king of the pirates Gold Roger's treasure and the One Piece and Quo. The gloomy and serious atmosphere made Luffy even more confused, thing that annoyed him. I don't understand you. What's going on with me? He pouted while crossing his arms together at his chest. Luffy, the kind of love you have for us, as your Nakama, is different from the feelings you have for Nami-san. I can tell at least that. Well, I guess it's a start, Zoro said as he finished his bottle of sake. You know, this kind of love is between a man and a woman that have a special relationship. It's when you want to spend your life with her, have kids and all, Frankie said, hoping for his captain to understand. Luffy tilted his head to his right side and he looked like he was assimilating what he just heard. Okay, I got it, he then grinned as he stood up. He remembered Ace telling him about something like that, so he was pretty sure he knew what love was. That was fast. Chopper looked at him, somehow unsure about what his captain understood from that discussion. You sure you did? Yeah, thanks guys. He was about to go out, when he remembered he still had one more question. But, does that mean that it's fine to want to spend more time with her? That only depends on her. Usopp couldn't just tell him that she would probably hit him without mercy if he ever tried something when he saw how happy Luffy was, so he just let him be. Sanji and Brook were the only ones left in the kitchen to wash the dishes while everyone else minded their own business. Did their own business. Zoro was actually rather lively that morning and instead of sleeping, he was training. Putting that aside, the only one who was acting weird was Nami. She would usually draw maps or sunbath with Robin on such a pleasant weather, but this time, she was only watching the ocean, checking from time to time the direction of the ship. Even more weird was the fact that Luffy was the one to notice. He let Usopp and Chopper handle the fishing and went to his navigator's side. Nami, his childish, cheerful voice snapped her out of her thoughts and brought a smile on her face. You're acting weird, he then said with a concerned look on his face. Is there anything wrong? No, I'm fine. Of course she wasn't. She really wanted to ask him about his relationship with Hancock, but she had no idea how to put it so she wouldn't sound desperate. Luffy didn't buy her words, so he just stood there, staring at her, knowing that eventually, she would tell him what was bothering her. Say, Luffy, she finally started. What kind of relationship do you have with Hancock? She's my friend, he said like it was the most obvious thing. Yes, but how do you feel about her? What do you mean? He pouted. I don't understand you. A big part of her was telling her to leave it be, knowing that she will never be able to have a conversation of this kind with Luffy, but that part, big as it was now dominated by jealousy and didn't let her give up on the topic. Well, from what you've told us, she's been asking you to marry since shortly after you two met. Haven't you ever, even for a second, considered marrying her? No, he didn't hesitate, not one bit before giving the answer. He couldn't understand where Nami was getting at, but he felt that she needed him to be serious and answer sincerely, so that's what he did. And why is that? I mean, she is the most beautiful woman in the world and she is very strong too. You wouldn't have to always look after her, like you do for me. As she was speaking, her heartbeat was increasing. Her logical part was screaming to let it go because she knew that the answer might hurt her terribly, but she just couldn't stop. Because I don't love her, Luffy simply answered, looking Nami in the eyes. And I don't care how people see her. I don't care that she's strong either. I like looking after you and helping you when you are in need. Don't make it sound like you are a burden to me or to the rest of the guys, because without you, it would have been impossible for all of us to move on from a day to another. Not only the words he said but also his conviction made Nami's heart stop for a few moments. She felt her cheeks on fire, but she didn't try to hide it. Instead, she smiled, so bright that Luffy couldn't restrain himself from hugging her. He thought that she was the most beautiful sight he's even seen. He didn't even understand why people considered Hancock so beautiful when in his eyes, she didn't even begin to compare with his gorgeous navigator. So this is love, huh? Shishishi. It feels nice. Nami couldn't move for a few moments as she was taken by surprise by Luffy's behavior, but she, very soon, wrapped her hands around him and hugged him back. Thank you, Luffy. I missed you so much in the course of these 2 years, and when I heard about Hancock, I was scared that she'd take you away from us, and that we'd get separated again. She almost whispered those words. That'd never happen, Luffy assured Nami as he let go of her and placed his hat on her head. Shishishi, I really like how it looks on you. He grinned, making Nami smile even brighter. The ship suddenly shook, making both of them lose balance and hit the wooden floor of the deck. Wah. Usopp, don't throw it this way. It's a huge shark. Do you want it to eat me? But you can transform into that huge monster and catch it. I would sink the ship, you stupid bastard. Hold it tight, I'll cook it for lunch. Luffy was now on top of Nami with his hands on both sides of her head. Neither of them could hear the ruckus that was caused by the shark Usopp caught as they were too captivated by each other. Luffy was slowly closing up the space between them as his heart felt like it was going to explode. Nami looked at him, somehow scared that her heart could stop as it was beating like never before. Could her ribs even take that much pressure? Their lips were only centimeters away when Luffy suddenly stood up, offering Nami a hand, too. I'm sorry. He didn't seem to find his words, and it was the first time Nami saw him nervous. You can keep that, he said, pointing at the hat that was resting on Nami's head. Then he left for his room. Once he was in, he started walking in circles with his hands crossed at his chest. What was I trying to do? This isn't right. What if she won't talk to me now? I don't want to lose our friendship because of this. This is bad, bad, bad. Outside the room, Nami was listening to him with a small smile on her face. She had no idea what just happened, but she preferred letting it slide and acting like it never happened. She wasn't even going to tell Robin about it, it would only complicate things. She, anyway, knew that Luffy didn't have any intention of kissing, seeing as how he is so childish. She didn't have the slightest idea how wrong she was, though. Luckily for them, no one saw what happened as they were all preoccupied by the huge and so delicious-looking fish that was now being carried to the kitchen. Nami went to her working room to finish a map, but as soon as she closed the door after her, she laid down in the bed Frankie made for her. She would often fall asleep while making maps and would wake up in the morning with terrible pains, so Frankie decided to make a bed. She closed her eyes and thought of what happened less than 2 minutes before, and she soon fell asleep. Asterisk. Oh, I can see an island. Luffy shouted, excited from Sunny's head. shout that even reached Nami and woke her up. She immediately went out of the room to look at the island. She checked the map and was happy to see that it was a populated one. I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait. Luffy was jumping up and down on the deck with a stupid look on his face, thing that made Nami giggle. Soon enough, they reached the island and docked the ship. Okay, we should see who is to stay and guard the ship and who. Sanji didn't even get to finish high phrase as he saw his captain launch himself on the island. This is going to be a long day.